Welcome to Motorsports Mania, the place where car history comes alive. If you're passionate about classic American muscle, performance legends, and the untamed spirit of automotive engineering, you're in the right place. Here, we take you on a journey through time to explore some of the most iconic vehicles ever made. Today, we're diving into one of Chevrolet's most recognized names in performance, the 1980 Chevy Camaro, specifically the third-generation early iteration known as the A Camaro. Though the Camaro had already made a strong impression since its debut in the late 60s, by 1980 it was adapting to a changing automotive world marked by stricter emissions standards, rising fuel costs, and shifting consumer preferences. Despite those challenges, the Camaro continued to hold its ground as a go-to option for American performance enthusiasts. The 1980 Chevy A Camaro marked the final model year of the second generation that began back in 1970. By this time, the Camaro had gained a more refined look while still maintaining its muscle car DNA. The body was low, long, and aggressive with bold styling cues that included a wide front grille, sharply angled lines, and a fastback profile that gave it a sporty and commanding presence on the road. The 1980 model year was significant because it was a bridge between the raw power days of the early muscle car era and the more restrained, efficiency-focused years of the 80s that would follow. Chevrolet had to carefully balance performance and compliance, and the result was a Camaro that still had muscle but also started showing signs of the industry's evolution. Engine options were diverse for the 1980 Camaro, offering something for everyone from economy-minded drivers to those who still craved V8 performance. The base model came with a 3.8-liter V6 engine, which was more about fuel economy than speed. There was also a 4.4-liter V8 for modest performance and, more notably, a 5.0-liter V8 and a 5.7-liter V8 available in the Z28 trim. The 5.7-liter, though choked somewhat by emissions equipment and reduced compression ratios, still managed to deliver respectable torque and decent acceleration for the time. These engines were paired with either a 3-speed automatic or a 4-speed manual transmission, depending on the trim and options selected. The Z28 model in particular came with performance-tuned components that made it stand out from the rest of the lineup. Performance-wise, the Z28 was the true enthusiast's choice. It featured a functional hood scoop, front and rear spoilers, and special suspension tuning that enhanced handling and cornering. Although the horsepower ratings were lower than the muscle car era due to federal regulations, the car still had enough grunt to make it enjoyable on open roads and provided a genuine muscle car feel. The Z28 also came with unique graphics, striping, and body accents that gave it an unmistakable presence. Inside, the 1980 Camaro offered a driver-centric cockpit with a wraparound dashboard, sporty steering wheel, and performance-themed gauges. Bucket seats came standard, and the cabin layout made the driver feel like they were part of the machine. Materials were a mix of vinyl, cloth, and hard plastics typical of the era, with optional upgrades like power windows, air conditioning, cruise control, and an upgraded sound system available. The rear seat was usable but best suited for short trips or extra storage, and the trunk space was modest given the sloped design. Driving the 1980 Camaro was all about presence and experience. The ride was smooth yet firm enough to offer confident road manners, especially in Z28 form. The steering was responsive, and the suspension tuning gave a good balance between comfort and performance. While it wasn't designed to carve tight corners like a European sports car, it had enough muscle and balance to provide plenty of driving enjoyment. Braking was handled by front disc brakes and rear drum brakes, which were standard at the time and adequate for daily use or spirited driving. Styling was one of the strongest selling points of the 1980 Camaro. Even the base models carried a sense of boldness, but the Z28 took things further with aggressive aerodynamic additions and standout visual cues. Pop the hood, and even if the power numbers weren't groundbreaking, the engine bay still carried a traditional muscle car layout with plenty of potential for tuning and modification. This has made the 1980 Camaro, especially the Z28 variant, a favorite among classic car fans and collectors who enjoy restoring and personalizing their rides. Fuel economy was not a strong suit, especially with the larger version 8s, but this was not a major concern for buyers drawn to the Camaro's performance and styling. The V6 variants offered slightly better mileage, making them more practical for daily driving. However, most enthusiasts looking back at this car today are not seeking it for efficiency but for the nostalgia, design, and V8 rumble that defined an era. Another important note about the 1980 Camaro is its place in history. As the last of the second generation, it marked the end of a decade-long design that had become a symbol of Chevrolet performance. The third generation would launch in 1982 with a more modern look and lightweight construction, but for many, the second generation represents the last true chapter of raw muscle blended with 70s styling. The 1980 model, with its matured looks and end-of-era vibe, captures that moment in automotive history perfectly. Today, the 1980 Chevy El Camaro is a sought-after vehicle for restoration, collection, and weekend cruising. Its parts are still widely available, and there's a strong enthusiast community supporting the Camaro legacy. Whether you find one in a barn or buy one fully restored, the car still delivers on the promise of affordable American performance and timeless appeal. The sound of a V8, the low-slung body, and the unmistakable shape all come together to remind you why the Camaro badge still holds weight. Thanks for tuning into Motorsports Mania, where the legend of American muscle lives on. If you enjoyed this review and want more deep dives into classic cars, rare trims, performance specs, and restoration inspiration, be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay connected. More legendary rides are just around the corner.